Welcome back to a chapter day. Happy Sabbath. I'm still in the Sabbath hours, and I did promise I would come back a second time because I skipped 2 days this week. So I'm going into Esther chapter 9. Now we have one more chapter after that, and it's so short. So to the next day I read, I don't want to sit tomorrow. The next day I read, I'm going to read that chapter 10 and do the review at the same time. So let's go. Now we just read this morning about Esther going to the king and beseeching him to reverse the decree that Haman had put out for the Jews, to kill the Jews. So the king was unable to do it because, like I said, they don't have that quick service, pick up the phone or do an email, text message, whatever. So he had to tell Mordecai, who took over the position from Haman, to go ahead and write up, or have one of the scribes write up a new decree stating that the Jews are to arm and protect themselves against anyone who is coming to attack them on that day that Haman had made for the Jews to be killed. So we'll see how that works out, and let's continue with our reading, chapter 9. Wow, it was a long, and this might be a little lengthy. Now in the 12th month, that is the month Adar, on the 13th day of the same, when the king's commandment and his decree drew near to be put in execution, in the day that the enemies of the Jews hoped to have power over them, though it was turned to the contrary, that the Jews had rule over them that hated them, the Jews gathered themselves together in their cities throughout all the provinces of the king Ahasuerus to lay hand on such as sought their hurt. And no man could withstand them, for the fear of them fell upon the people. And all the rulers of the provinces and the lieutenants and the deputies and officers of the king helped the Jews, because the fear of Mordecai fell upon them. For Mordecai was great in the king's house, and his fame went out throughout all the provinces. For this man Mordecai waxed greater and greater. Thus the Jews smote all their enemies with the stroke of the sword, and slaughter and destruction, and did what they would unto those that hated them. So they could not overturn the previous decree that Haman had put out, but Mordecai had sent out a new one for the Jews to protect themselves. And when the day came for the slaughter of the Jews, they were able to defend themselves and kill off the enemies of those who were coming after them. Because some people, even though they got the new decree, would still go on and take off the old one because they hated the Jews anyway. Verse 6. And in Shushan the palace, the Jews slew and destroyed 500 men, and Pashandatha, and Dalphon, and Aspatha, and Poratha, and Adalia, and Aridatha, and Parmashter, and Arisai, and Aridai, and Vajezatha, the 10 sons of Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the enemy of the Jews, slew they, but on the spoil laid they not their hand. So all these names were the sons of Haman who were killed. Okay, because I'm sure Haman's sons would have come after them for revenge for what happened to their father anyway. Verse 11. So even though they killed Haman's sons, they didn't take their properties. Verse 11. On that day, the number of those that were slain in Shushan the palace was brought before the king. And the king said unto Esther, the queen, the Jews have slain and destroyed 500 men in Shushan the palace, and the 10 sons of Haman. What have they done in the rest of the king's provinces? Now what is thy petition, and it shall be granted thee? Or what is thy request further, and it shall be done? Then said Esther, if it please the king, let it be granted to the Jews which are in Shushan to do tomorrow also according unto this day's decree, and let Haman's 10 sons be hanged upon the gallows. And the king commanded it so to be done, and the decree was given at Shushan, and they hanged Haman's 10 sons. For the Jews that were in Shushan gathered themselves together on the 14th day also of the month Adar, and slew 300 men at Shushan, but on the prey they laid not their hand. So I guess I'm not sure if this slaying of Haman's sons was just in one province, or if he had sons in another province, or if this was just a reiteration of what happened after they mentioned it, that maybe that's how Haman's sons came to be killed. Esther may have requested it personally. However, it happened, it happened. Verse 16. But the other Jews that were in the king's provinces gathered themselves together and stood for their lives and had rest from their enemies and slew of their foes 70 and 5,000. That's a lot of people. Yeah, that were going to come at them anyway. Whew. But they laid not their hands on the prey. So even though they're killing the people, their enemies, they're not taking their possessions, because the Jews were a people who had possessions. God does not leave his people empty handed. That's the truth. Verse 17. On the 13th day of the month Adar, and on the 14th day of the same, rested they, and made it a day of feasting and gladness. But the Jews that were at Shushan assembled together on the 13th day thereof, and on the 14th day thereof, and on the 15th day thereof of the same they rested, and made it a day of feasting and gladness. So they kind of went over just that, not just that day. They had to kind of prepare themselves for the day after that, maybe, and the day after that, then they feasted and thank God for their deliverance. Verse 19. Therefore, the Jews of the villages that dwelt in the unwalled towns made the 14th day of the month Adar a day of gladness and feasting, and a good day, and of sending portions one to another. And Mordecai wrote these things and sent letters unto all the Jews that were in all the provinces of the king Ahasuerus, both nigh and far, to establish this among them, that they should keep the 14th day of the month Adar, and the 15th day of the same yearly, as the days wherein the Jews rested from their enemies, and the month which was turned unto them from sorrow to joy, and from mourning unto a good day, that they should make them days of feasting and joy, and of sending portions one to another, and gifts to the poor. And the Jews undertook to do as they had begun, and as Mordecai had written unto them. Because Haman the son of Hammedatha the Agagite, the enemy of all the Jews, had devised against the Jews to destroy them, and had cast pur, that is the lot, to consume them and to destroy them. But when Esther came before the king, he commanded by letters that his wicked device, which he devised against the Jews, should return upon his own head, and that he and his sons should be hanged on the gallows. So it seems like here they're already giving a review of the whole thing that had taken place with Haman, etc. Verse 26, wherefore they call these days Purim. And I think even today, I know the Jews celebrate this. After the name of Pur, which I thought, yes. Therefore, for all the words of this letter, and of that which they had seen concerning this matter, and which had come unto them, the Jews ordained and took upon them, and upon their seed, and upon all such as joined themselves unto them, so as it should not fail, that they would keep these 2 days according to their writing, and according to their appointed time every year, lest we forget. People need remembrances, because sometimes one generation passes away, and if you don't hand down the information or the practice to the others, then it will fade away. So they wanted to make sure that people remembered what took place, the deliverance that they got, that the Jews received from God, of course. Verse 28, and that these days should be remembered and kept throughout every generation, like I said, every family, every province, and every city, and that these days of Purim should not fail from among the Jews, nor the memorial of them perish from their seed. Then Esther the queen, the daughter of Abihail, and Mordecai the Jew, wrote with all authority to confirm this second letter of Purim. And he sent the letters unto all the Jews to the 127 provinces of the kingdom of Ahasuerus, with the words of peace and truth, to confirm these days of Purim in their times appointed, according as Mordecai the Jew and Esther the queen had enjoined them, and as they had decreed for themselves and for their seed, the matters of the fastings and their cry. And the decree of Esther confirmed these matters of Purim, and it was written in the book. So both Mordecai and Esther made sure and made records of these rules and laws concerning what had happened about Purim. They needed to celebrate that time of deliverance, and maybe just letting people know what had taken place, how the Jews were to be massacred and they were delivered instead. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to run through chapter 10 because I was going to do a review, but this book is just so straightforward. I mean, I don't really need to say too much about it. And they already seem to give like a short review in this chapter 9. So I'm just going to read chapter 10, few verses. And the king Ahasuerus laid a tribute upon the land and upon the isles of the sea, and all the acts of his power and of his might, and the declaration of the greatness of Mordecai, whereunto the king advanced him. Are they not written in the book of the chronicles of the kings of Media and Persia? For Mordecai the Jew was next unto King Ahasuerus, and great among the Jews, and accepted of the multitude of his brethren, seeking the wealth of his people, and speaking peace to all his seed. And that is the end of chapter 10 and of the book of Esther. So we have seen God's deliverance on his people. No weapon formed against us shall prosper, and every tongue that rises against us in judgment shall be silenced. And we need to remember that as God's people. Stop feeling as though you are defeated when you have won. God sent his son Jesus, and he won the battle for us to begin with. Satan is defeated. He's not king of this world. He can no longer even present himself before God in heaven. He is defeated and just waiting his time when Jesus returns, and he will be destroyed forever. That's the end of our reading of the book of Esther. Thank you all for listening. We start a new book the next day that I read. So you all keep on listening because that's how our faith will grow. Take care. Bye.